This is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends. Not with a whimper, but with the most entertaining cinematic trash fire ever produced.
Greetings all, welcome to Film Stuffs. My name is Jake S. Weissman. I only wear a t-shirt when I film these videos. What do I wear underneath the waist? That's the mystery that keeps you watching. Today is a very special episode. I bring you a holiday extravaganza, a spectacular, if you will. This is my absolute favorite Independence Day 4th of July tradition. I do this every single year. What is it? I watch Southland Tales. All 2 hours and 25 minutes of it. I thought while we were all enjoying... If you hear fireworks, explosions, and sirens, it means the entire neighborhood is excited for me to watch Richard Kelly's Southland Tales. This is a different kind of an episode. I'm posting a podcast that I did a little while ago on a show called Bad Movie Brunch. I'll put the link to them below. It's a show hosted by Luke Taylor and Katie Grotzinger. It's one of my favorite podcasts in the world. I've been on it more than once talking about Jersey Girl, Tusk, my own movies, Scrapers, and Clean Sheets. If you enjoy talking about great movies and lesser great movies ad nauseum, Bad Movie Brunch is the one for you. It's really smart and super, super funny. And they'll throw some curveballs at you that you've never thought of before. I'm also really good on that show. So before we start the show, I thought I'd give a little introduction. So let me get this show on the road so you can listen to me talk for a really long time. The song of the episode, we got two today. First one, The Pixies, Wave of Mutilation UK Surf. You're gonna watch the trailer to Southland Tales and say, what version of what Pixies song is bad? I'll put a link down below. The second song, The Killers, All These Things That I've Done. If you watch the movie, you'll understand. If you don't watch the movie, you'll never understand. The book of this episode is Southland Tales, the prequel saga. Natch. If you've watched the film and noticed that it takes place over the course of chapters 4, 5, and 6 and wanted to know what chapters 1, 2, and 3 of the Southland Tales epic was, find a copy of this book. I used to own a copy, and I don't anymore. Lost to time. I wish I had it though, because used that book is about $300 and brand new it's about $900. Wes, do you still have it? Keep it. This book is a graphic novel. It expounds on the lore. Does it clear anything up? Not really. There is a note inside the book from the filmmaker that does illuminate some stuff, almost worth the entire price of the book. Not worth $900. Somebody scan this thing and put it online. Richard Kelly, make a PDF, please. Comicsology? Comics.com? Comics? I would like to see Southland Tales, the prequel saga, on there. On my Kindle or iPad, what have you. And what's the movie of the episode? I'm not gonna say any more. If you haven't watched this movie, stop this video, watch the whole thing, soak it in, grok it, and then come back to listen to me and Katie Grotzinger talk about it on Bad Movie Brunch. Special shout out to Weslar and Moby. Why not?
And as always, thanks for watching the flick with me again, Hillary Stroshine.
Oh, and please do this business right here. What are you waiting for? Watch this movie. God, so many people are gonna hate me after this. More people hate me because I forced them to watch Southland Tales.
They say they're working on a sequel. I'll believe it when I see it. None of those actors are gonna come back.
I'm going to tell you the story of the journey down the road not taken. This is the way the world ends. This is the way the world ends.
Welcome to Bad Movie Brunch. I'm Katie here in Los Angeles. My usual co-host Luke Taylor of Chicago is currently out filming his feature film Break. It's a fantastic coming-of-age movie centered in Luke's hometown in Canton, Illinois. It's romantic, it's charming, it made me tear up. So if you want to support independent film, please donate to Luke's Patreon.
Definitely.
Awesome. Now, with that said, I do have a guest co-host this week. Care to introduce yourself, sir?
Sure. Hi, my name is Jake S. Weissman. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. I'm thrilled to have you on. What are we watching? What have we watched for today?
There was one, when I was asked to do this, there was one movie that came to mind, and I passed it up and thought about a bunch of other movies and realized that I can talk about this movie for hours and hours and hours. I asked you to watch Southland Tales.
You certainly did. You certainly did. And I am baffled. I had, again, I feel like a charlatan. I had never heard of this film before, and which is interesting considering that I consider myself kind of a grand dame of dumb. So I think that I know my bad movies, and I also feel like I know my Kevin Smith, and he popped up in this little flick.
Yeah, I was watching it and I was thinking, hey, good thing I picked this movie because now it keeps with the theme of me joining during Kevin Smith-esque things.
Yeah, I'm glad there's a nice through line for that.
That's all you can ask for.
So you have a bit of a history of this film. Can you care to tell me about that?
Absolutely. This is one of my favorite movie-going experiences. I went with my best friend Wesley when we were in high school. Okay, I guess it goes back even further because to talk about this movie, you got to talk about Donnie Darko. This movie is written and directed by Richard Kelly. When I was 14 years old, this is my little hipster thing, but I'm proud to say that I discovered Donnie Darko on my own at 14 and made sure to watch it, and it blew my mind, and I watched it a lot and a lot and a lot. So as that came along, people, I guess IMDb started talking about Southland Tales, which The Rock hadn't been in that many things. Sean William Scott, Kevin Smith has always been a part of it. And it always had this kind of amorphous log line about set in the near future. It's a musical and it's about something. And I could never, it was one of those movies I thought was never going to get made. And then the next thing you know, it's 2007 or something like that. And it got booed at Cannes. And
it got booed hard. Yeah, like it really upset
people. They hated it. And so I still want to see that cut. I feel like, oh man, that's such a distinction. And it made me want to see it more because if people hate it that much, there must be something going on. So it actually came to Burlington, Vermont on some sort of a first run. And I made sure that me and Wesley went and saw it. And we snuck in sandwiches. And it was me and Wes, and one other person. And we watched the film. And our minds were blown. And it was around, I mean, we'll get more into it, but it was around that beautiful shot of The Rock in the car where they they mount the camera on the back of the car and it drives away and the Moby music is like blaring up and it's kind of windy outside. And I looked at Wes and I said, is this the worst movie ever made? This might be like the worst movie. And so we're watching it wondering, is this the worst movie? And Justin Timberlake starts singing the Killers song.
Oh, I know. Oh, God bless. What a moment.
I don't usually like to jump to the gun, but this is really when we looked at each other and said, oh no, this is the greatest movie ever made. And after that, it's just smooth sailing. I think, oh my gosh, like I said, I can talk. That's my history with it. There is a book. The movie,
I've heard, yeah.
Yes. So this movie is chapters 4, 5, and 6.
Oh my God.
The book is 1, 2, and 3. So me and Wes both bought the book, devoured it, read it like 3 times because it's just as dense and stupid and weird as the movie. And it goes on perfectly. And a lot of like the first 10 minutes of the movie is kind of stuff from the book. And I don't have that copy anymore. I lost it. And now when I look on Amazon, it's like $65 to get a copy of this because it's out of print. So
sweet Jesus.
It's so awesome. It's so excellent. what a saga. And I guess when they were building it, there was a lot of website-y stuff, but I never really got into the website-y stuff. So that's my history. I can go from here, but let me know how did you end up watching it, and what's your experience viewing Southland Tales?
Well, sir, I ended up watching it because you picked it for this podcast. And again, I had never even heard of it. And I felt like, again, a complete charlatan, a fake of bad movie-dom. And also, this movie made me feel really stupid because after multiple viewings and listening to that very one guy on YouTube, just the one guy try to break down this film, I am more confused than ever. After trying to do the research, after delving into it, trying to like be a good co-host, I really made an effort for this podcast, and I like found out about the multiple chapters and everything. It sounds like Richard Kelly was trying to do like a Star Wars thing almost.
Yeah, he was. Yep.
Okay,
definitely.
so this was supposed to be like his new hope, and was he thinking that he was going to go back and do the other chapters later?
No, I think this is his 4, 5, and 6, like doing the entire Star Wars trilogy in one go.
Sweet God, so much happens in this movie.
That's what I was.
And
yeah. Yes.
Well, here's something that I thought was really interesting, because it's impossible for me to break down this plot because I'm so thoroughly confused. But there are bits and pieces of it that interest me.
Yep.
And one of the things I want to talk to you about is Kristen Now.
Nobody rocks the cock like Kristen Now.
Nobody rocks the cock like Kristen Now. So Kristen Now is this
Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Sarah Michelle Gellar is in, oh my gosh, the only other time I've seen her in a role like this where she was supposed to be like super sexy was Cruel Intentions. These were like her two roles where she was like gonna try to make it as like a sexy starlet, and both I feel fell amazingly flat. But in what interests me is that her character seems to be of like maybe one of the most 2007 characters that ever there was. Right? To me, like she's supposed to be like Paris Hilton. Like
she's
this gal.
Paris Hilton meets like Britney Spears, that whole era of that kind of celebrity. This movie is 100% a response to the time that it was written, through the time that it was made. It's one of the reasons why I love it, is because it is a Bush era movie like hell. And now watching it now, it's not like it's that crazy different, but it's super Bush era.
It is super Bush era, and it's just like how she imagines herself in her brand and how she's going to branch out and start a revolution as a one-woman porn like machine. Is
reality star, energy drink, pop star. Teen horniness is not a crime.
Yeah, with it, oh my gosh, and her friends, her gaggle of friends that follow. Yep. Like it's so of its era.
Yeah,
and it just blows my mind. So her character is really interesting. I think that the Rock's whole story just confused the ever-loving goodness out of me.
Of course.
So he was an actor who was married to the daughter of the vice president of the Republican Party.
He's a senator, and he's kind of like this. It's Holmes Osborne. He plays Bobby Frost. There's so many names in this movie.
So many names.
I was thinking, like, well, let me answer your question. So he's Senator Bobby Frost. He is the Republican nominee for the upcoming election, the 2008 nomination. This movie was going to be set in the distant future. By the time it came out, it was an alternate reality. It came out in like 2006 or 2007, and the whole movie takes place in 2008. And it's just, it's beautiful. It's so beautiful. It's, oh my God. So Mandy Moore is his daughter. Mm-hmm. She's married to Boxer Santeros, who is
AKA The Rock. Yeah.
AKA Jericho Kane.
AKA Jericho Cocaine. By the way, that's if you're listening at home, that's Jericho space Kane.
I never put that together.
Like, oh man.
That's the thing. This movie has the craziest sense of humor, and Richard Kelly never lets go of like, it never takes itself too seriously. This movie is ridiculous. Namely, the fact that like 40% of it is weird fucking SNL cast members. that just show up out of nowhere.
Yeah,
and kill it.
I do think it's really, I do think he was trying to do something genuinely interesting for that, because it sounds like what he was going for was that he was blown away by the performances of these kind of like B actors that he didn't think got like a real shot at like different roles.
Sure.
So he was trying to give them a chance to try something different, something fun, and that I respect. I don't think it always works, but I do think the intent behind it is sound.
Yes. What I say about Southland Tales every time, and the reason why I love it so much, is because it is the most beautiful mess put on film. I think it is never boring. I think it is dense as hell. And if it were a novel, people might be really, really into it. But because it's a movie, it makes no sense. And it makes no sense until literally like the 9th time you watch this movie. So, and it's a movie that people can't really penetrate the first couple of times, much less 9.
God,
so
no. And I didn't exactly have the external reading material. I didn't know that there was going to be homework to watch a friggin' movie.
I made people watch this movie on my birthday once, and I fell asleep halfway through. And they were like, "Can we turn this off?" And I woke up and said, "No, you have to watch it," and then went back to sleep. It was
good stuff.
That's the thing, is I introduced this movie to a lot of people and almost nobody likes it, which is one of the reasons why I keep introducing it to people, because maybe someone out there will like just get it. They'll just get Southland Tales, and it's fun to talk about.
Well, don't you have that connection with your friend? Like, isn't that one of the most like the beautiful points of your friendship? Is that you guys get it?
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
you have found that one person who gets this movie as much as you do.
I'm very excited to send Wesley this podcast, because he's going to be the one that really appreciates it. I'm hoping people shout out to Wesley. I hope other people listen to this and really want to get a taste for it, because it's crazy. It is a real bonkers kind of a movie.
But anyway, I want to get back to Jericho Kane, aka Boxer Santeros, aka The Rock. So he was married to Mandy Moore, but then he got amnesia because he went through a 4th dimension time portal and traveled back in time 60 something minutes, and then ended up with Kristen Now, who was trying to manipulate him into thinking that he wrote her screenplay that explains the end of the universe, because this movie's a retelling of the Book of Revelation. Am I close?
You are so close. You are so close. The only step that you're missing is that after they go through the 4th dimension, it creates a double of yourself. And
where is his souls?
That's the body that Kevin Smith shows him that looks nothing like The Rock. So it's really confusing, because I didn't know until like the 4th time I watched the movie that was supposed to be The Rock anyway, like the charred up corpse of The Rock. And they explain more of it in the book, of course. But yeah, and so Ronald and Roland are actually the same guy. And
that I got.
Two
not
souls.
Twins. They're the same guy.
2 souls cannot walk on the earth together, and so they decide to collapse the 4th dimension because they're pimps or something to that effect.
But
you really got it.
Like suicide.
That's right.
As The Rock so beautifully puts it at one of the points of this movie. And that makes no earthly sense whatsoever. No. But what they're referring to, like that the world ends because the 2 Sean William Scotts shake hands in an ice cream truck that's floating in the sky. Right?
Yes, it's the best.
It's so nuts. I gotta tell you, man, I was walking around like just shouting at people. I was like, have you seen this movie? Somebody talk to me about it.
I am so giddy about this. It is so funny. It's so funny to me. Because I get it. I mean, Justin Timberlake narrates the thing. And I guess he narrated the whole thing in a real irreverent kind of a way, and then it didn't work during the screening, so they had him re-record the entire thing. And he plays an actor who's like one of the most famous actors in the world, along with Boxer Santeros, but they have nothing to do with each other. And he and Sean William Scott were in Fallujah together, and Sean William Scott shot Justin Timberlake, and so that's why Roland's like can't forgive himself and stuff like that. And by the end, he's like, I forgive you. You can let yourself go. You can let it go now.
Okay.
And Pilot, and that's why. Oh, that's also why Justin Timberlake says "my best friend" out of nowhere.
Nowhere,
at the end of the movie,
absolutely
and you
nowhere.
see Janine Garofalo just kind of partying because they cut her scene. So there's some one shot of Janine Garofalo and Justin Timberlake together. So that's kind of what that's supposed to be about. That's the background, is that they were in Fallujah together and then they both got sent back. But Sean William Scott was the Rock's escort through the fourth dimension, and he didn't die. And I guess Bai Ling killed the Rock, but they managed to not kill Sean William Scott.
Sweet Christ, I did not get any of that from watching this movie twice.
Oh, I'm glad I can add something.
Thank you, I appreciate it. I did, like, okay, also, when the Sean William Scotts are shaking hands in forgiveness for, like, the end of the universe finale in the ice cream truck in the sky, he's able to talk to Aibileen, the pilot, played by Justin Timberlake, because they're both on this drug called fluid karma, correct? And that makes them psychically linked?
I never put that together, but that's cool.
Really?
I bet that.
Okay,
I'm sure you're right.
I'm so confused by the fluid karma.
Okay, I can explain fluid karma. What doesn't make sense. Okay, so fluid karma is. How do I begin this? How do I start? Because there's Wallace Shawn, who's basically created a perpetual motion machine. He's mimicked the waves of the ocean, which is a perpetual motion machine, and has figured out a way to make basically like oil and fossil fuels. You don't need them anymore. So it's this beam that gets put out through the sky that runs cars, it runs mega zeppelins, it runs everything that needs energy, basically. So it's a brand new way of living life. And so Wallace Shawn and his family, which includes Booger and the woman from Poltergeist, and
that sure is her.
Yeah, and I wish I could remember her name, but she's in Donnie Darko and she's the best. Beth Grant. And so that's this, they become bajillionaires from this. And I guess, side note, you can inject it into your body and that will make you have a crazy drug trip that they never really quite explain.
Yes, and there's different levels of it apparently, which are illuminated in the extra material in the book. Like that's when Justin Timberlake is talking to that guy in the do-rag, who I guess is supposed to be the angel of death.
His name is
because he shoots.
Fowler.
Yes, him.
Lou Taylor Pucci.
Yeah, and so gosh. And he's talking to him about like something like orange and all these different colors, but then he's like, the red is the best of this particular thing that you can inject inside your person. And then he does the killer's number. It's a whole thing.
It's really,
and I guess
wow.
And the angel of death is the son of the plastic surgeon that fixed up Justin Timberlake's face.
And then he gets drafted, this Keith Alver kid, and wants to kill himself. And Sean William Scott finds him, and they spend the rest of the movie together. And what's his face ends up on the ice cream truck with Keith Alver ends up on the ice cream truck with a bazooka. Man, this is so weird. It's hard to talk about this movie, man. You can't go in a straight line. It really is.
No, well, because I'm just trying to figure out what I saw. Like it
you got a great idea.
Podcast is just me yelling at you and being like, "Did that happen? Am I close?
Did that car just fuck that other car?"
That sure did happen. It's just so many things just got flown in my face at once that it's hard to keep track of. Like at one point, Sarah Michelle Gellar says this line that's so where she says something like, the future, scientists say the future is going to be more futuristic than they originally thought.
Yeah.
Which that just hangs for a moment.
Yeah.
And oh man, just trying to pick up the pieces. But so there's Marxists. Is Sean William Scott a Marxist?
No, he is not.
They're separate.
He's been abducted by the Marxists.
I see. Okay,
both of them. One of them, I can't remember. I think the double is the one that they're trying to be the racist cop that doesn't know what the fuck and hasn't had a bowel movement in 6 days. And the other one is the real one that went through the portal, who's pretty much just gets the shit kicked out of him through the entire movie. He's passed out in the beginning. They wake him up and he's all drugged out. He jumps into a fucking dumpster, stays in the dumpster till nighttime, gets up, walks to the ice cream guy where it's, who is that? Peter Weller? Or is it, I always get him confused. I always get RoboCop and fucking Highlander confused. But
I don't know,
it's one of those guys. And he fucking knocks him out cold. So and then it isn't until the ATM machine careens with the ice cream truck and the two Sean William Scotts meet each other that actually happens. And that's when the revolution is actually in full swing.
Okay. Wow. So again, this movie is very dense and it has a lot of extra material that requires some studying to get the full picture of what you're watching. But from what I gathered, again, this movie is like a retelling of the Book of Revelation.
Yep.
And Sean William Scott is supposed to be is Jesus, essentially.
Yep.
The gentleman with the bazooka is the angel of death riding on the horse that is the ice cream truck in this sense.
Yep.
And gosh, so is The Rock? No. Kristen now is a prophet.
Yeah.
Right?
I think so.
And what does that make The Rock? Because he's set up to be Jesus, but Sean William Scott is Jesus, right?
Yeah.
So what is he?
No, I think it's explained in the book, but that's not a good answer. I don't know what he represents. I don't know the Book of Revelations. I'm pretty Jewish, and I didn't read that. And I know what I know about it. The thing about the book is that there's this really excellent. I remember it's like, I don't know if it's 2-4 pages of Richard Kelly basically explaining everything that you just said and breaking it down and saying that it's the Book of Revelations and that was his intention. And but it's also this like crazy social satire at the same time. So it's just mixing an ungodly amount of things with an ungodly amount of things and just trying to sort it out. And he is not successful whatsoever, but I think there's a lot of advantage to just watching it over and over again because I always pick up new stuff, always, every time.
It's definitely a hot mess, but there is a lot of things to like pick apart, and I can understand how you could get more out of it through multiple viewings. So I do think it would be fascinating to watch with a group of people to try to have a discussion about. I do feel like it's almost like a book club movie.
Yeah,
like I need to talk to other people about it because I felt like I was going crazy just going up to various folks and being like, somebody please watch this. And they're like, but everything you're saying makes us not want to watch this. I'm like, I know, but I just need other people to see it so I can make sense of what just happened. But man, it's really something. I actually did find one other person who has seen this movie before who told me about it before this podcast, and I promptly forgot about it.
Nice.
And it's and he told me, yeah, I know. I felt really bad about it, but
shout out to that dude.
This is apparently, shout out to Andy. So he was telling me that Southland Tales, because originally Richard Kelly was trying to write just a straight satire of Los Angeles culture. But then a little something happened. A little something called 9/11. And according to Andy, that blew Richard Kelly's mind.
Yeah.
Like, everybody was impacted by 9/11 in their own way, but Richard Kelly, it really destroyed him. Like, he could not fathom how a tragedy on a scale like that could possibly happen. And because of that, he tried to inject so many thoughts and feelings into this picture that it eventually became bloated and incomprehensible. That's his take on it, that the reason why this doesn't make any sense is because Richard Kelly was trying to get through his own mourning in regards to 9/11.
Andy, I think that is 100% apt. I think that's a cool answer. I mean, that is the thing. It's Bush era. It's very in response to 9/11. I mean, the whole movie starts. I think that sequence at the beginning is probably my favorite part of the entire movie. just because that's the kind of thing I like, and it gets you. If you don't know what this movie is, I just watched it with my roommate, and she had no idea what it was. This is my 4th of July tradition. I watch this movie every 4th of July, and try not to watch it more than that, but I managed to because I watched it this morning. And she had no idea what to expect, and then you see a giant, point of view of an A-bomb going off in Texas, and it's just like just some crazy stuff to get you in, and then like 10 minutes of weird throwing exposition at you like nobody's business, just a bunch of stuff that doesn't make any sense, with pictures and videos and Hustler and Bud Light sponsoring World War III in 4 different countries. Oh my gosh. And yeah, I mean,
the first 10 minutes of this movie are basically Richard Kelly throwing his book that you were supposed to read at your head.
And I guess the Cannes version didn't have that, which I can't imagine watching this.
I can't even imagine.
Without
I can't imagine.
But it got me. Like, that's when I watched this with Wes, it was that party, boom, and then exposition where I was like, oh my God, I just want to know more. Just give me more. Oh my gosh. Cock chugging. Yep,
I know. It's definitely meant to be a very American movie, and I do think it's really interesting to think about in the sense that of a mourning piece, like when somebody is trying to get through something and this is what they have to give to the world. Like usually, like we talk about like breakup movies and how those can either be really good or just terrible. But this was trying to deal with like a global or national, like an event, a big global national.
Right.
I'm sorry, I'm muttering over my words, but you know what I'm saying?
Totally
like a big tragedy like 9/11.
Well, it's 9/11 plus the Patriot Act plus what was going on with Bush and and the Iraq War. It's all very present for the time, and our constant need for oil, like that's all we talked about in the 2000s. I feel like it's, I mean, when I was a freshman in high school when Bush came in, and a senior in college when Bush was out. So like the whole thing, this whole movie becomes this weird nostalgia, kind of like what we were talking about with Jersey Girl, but in a little different way, where it's like it doesn't put me there, but it's this weird reflection of a time that was very vivid in my head. And obviously he was really trying to figure some stuff out, and it's a dense piece of work. There's so many things going on, and 100 name actors playing characters that they would never play any other time. And I know that the actors have no idea what they're doing either. Like if you listen to the making of or watch the making of, none of them have no idea what the movie is about.
Justin Timberlake still has no idea what this movie is about.
Word. And like some of the scenes, like that one scene with Sean William Scott and Will Sasso, they look like Richard Kelly directed them differently. Like they're in 2 different scenes, but in the same scene. It's a really strange, there's just weird choices across the board. There's Eli Roth getting shot on a toilet.
Yeah. Apparently Marilyn Manson, like that's all he wanted to talk about when he ran into Eli Roth was like, hey man,
wow.
How about that?
Wow. That's a great one. Yeah.
I do think it's interesting to hear the actors talk about it because gosh, I'm trying to, who is Sarah Michelle Gellar and The Rock, when I saw an interview with them where they seemed so convinced that this is an art house masterpiece.
Yeah.
And I am just so blown away by that I feel like they think that they're in a different movie than they are.
Well, I mean, Sarah Michelle Gellar, have you seen her do something as satirical as this before? Like, it's pretty self-aware for her. I don't think that she's it may be flat, but it's also like, I'm pretty sure she's aware of what she's doing, right?
Well, they call her character the thinking man's porn star, which I'm not sure I agree with that. I do think Kristen now, again, just seems like a gigantic parody of Paris Hilton and everything that was going on with like sex tapes, bringing people to celebrity at that time. Sure. Her whole character reminds me of that episode of South Park, that stupid spoiled horror video playset. That's what her whole character reminds me of, is just how people were reacting to Paris Hilton at that time. So I
Yeah.
don't think that it's really saying anything deep. It's just pointing at something and being like, this is a thing that is happening, and there's some merit to that, but it's give me something else.
But
Comment on it.
also, she's kind of, I mean, as a character, you're right. Comment on it. There's nothing being commented. You're right. I will absolutely, you're right. But by the end, she does give the footage to the neo-Marxists and end up working with Baron von Westphalen or whatever, who's funding the whole
Antichrist.
revolution. Yeah. So she, as a character, at least, while she plays this kind of vapid, she's not that whatever, like you said, a thinking man's porn star or whatever they tried to do with her. She ends up being instrumental in the turning of the revolution, which is kind of interesting to me. But it's also like there are things about it that really bother me, like the basic 69 only meant one thing to her, and just like there's a lot of 69 throughout the movie. Like her channel is 1069, I noticed, and it's like just kind of bat you over the head with some of it. And
there's so much 12-year-old boy humor throughout the entirety of this movie, and sometimes it works and sometimes it super doesn't.
Yes, 100%. Because he does that. Like there are parts of Donnie Darko that sound like Kevin Smith reject scenes, when they're talking about the Smurfs and shit like that. So
yeah,
and that's what I've heard. I've heard stories about like Richard Kelly when he wrote Donnie Darko. It was just this tome of papers that made not that much sense, and then he and the producers kind of worked it into a screenplay together. And
I have heard that. I also heard that Kevin Smith. What did he say? He said something like Richard Kelly, given the right training, could be the next Christopher Nolan.
That's high praise.
Yeah, I thought so.
That's high praise considering how I don't know if Donnie Darko holds up as much. This is a in its own sphere for me. This movie is its own beast, so I'll always love it. And The Box is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. So, and he hasn't done anything since then. So I don't know what his deal is. Where is he? Where's Richard Kelly? Tell me.
That's worth looking into. If he does do another one, I definitely want to talk about it with you.
Okay.
Now that we've gone down this rabbit hole. Awesome.
I'm about to watch The Box again because maybe I missed something. Like that's the thing is it sometimes it's so bad, but if it's interesting, I'll take it because nothing is more egregious than boring.
Yes,
and I will give him this. Yeah, I will take a bad movie over a boring movie.
I do respect Richard Kelly for at least trying. He tried something different. I don't think it worked at all. I don't know if I could watch this movie outside of you Sherpa-ing me through it ever again. But God damn it, I respect him. I do think that he worked something out publicly, put it on the line, and people react to it very poorly, and he had to live with that.
And I guess the other part that we haven't really talked about, we sort of have, is that this is the follow-up to Donnie Darko. So they gave him a bunch of money and said, do your thing. You know what I'm saying? Like, Donnie Darko was a hit. It's a smash. Your next thing's going to be even bigger. Like, it's almost Heaven's Gate in proportion. Not the fact that he didn't take advantage of, but the fact that everyone watched The Deer Hunter and they were like, whatever's next is going to be the best fucking thing ever made. And then he ended up just taking all the money and making Heaven's Gate, Chimino. But Richard Kelly, I'm sure he's a great businessman and whatever, but he took a lot of good faith from a lot of good producers that were fucking down with Donnie Darko and threw out this fucking 2.5 hour what the fuck movie. And I like you respect the hell out of them, and the movie is fun as shit for me, but so 100% understand people that hate this movie. I know why people hate this movie, and I couldn't think of any other movie that I feel quite this way about. So I'm really glad I could introduce you to it. I was really glad you hadn't heard of it.
Oh yeah, for sure. And so since you're such a fan, as a recommendation to those who might be interested in seeing it, what conditions do you think are perfect to see Southland Tales?
Oh man. Um, well, I mean, what do you mean by that?
Like, do you think that they should watch it themselves and go into it completely blind? Should they do some research
Oh, don't
beforehand?
get research. Absolutely. No research. Go into it cold. Watch it cold. If you don't know anything about it. I mean, if you've listened to this already,
That
then
it's
you have
ruined.
that much. It's kind of like you, but trying to, if you don't know the movie, you're going to listen to this and try and understand what we're kind of back and forthing here.
Hmm.
Because I don't know what this is going to sound like to somebody who's never seen this movie. And that's why I was giggling the entire time because it's out of control. But yeah, don't if you can help it, and watch it with somebody that's never heard of it too, and
Hmm.
and grit your teeth through it because it's hard at first. For me, like I said, it took a second to be like, I think this is a big letdown, and I think everybody's awful, and this is a really terrible, terrible, terrible movie. And then it's like, no, no, there's just something else going on. There's this other plane. It's the same. I know how many people fucking hate those Matrix sequels, but I really like those Matrix sequels for the same reason, where it's like just this heavenly mess. The reason why I like this kind of more is that it doesn't take itself as seriously. Matrix is like biblical. So,
This is biblical too.
I mean, this is biblical, but also like nobody rocks the cock like Krista now.
Yeah, that is true.
Have a nice apocalypse.
Yep.
All the poetry,
Dance sequence.
just like not with a whimper, but with a bang, and miles to go before you sleep, and miles to go before you sleep. Just like throwing these poetry lines and these Bible quotes, and it's so up its own ass in the greatest way. And then John Lovitz comes out of nowhere with white hair and the most chilling performance. So it's I don't know.
Go into it blind with a friend.
Yeah, watch it with a friend. Have an open mind. I just have an open mind with it. Try and get to the end, and if you can, but know that if you can't, it's not that it's you, it's the film.
Okay, fantastic. I had so much fun discussing this with you. Thank you so much for introducing me to this film.
Thank you so much for having me.
This has been a ball.
Absolutely. And so I have been Katie Gertzinger here in Los Angeles.
And I have been Jake S. Weissman in Chicago.
Scientists are saying the future is going to be far more futuristic than they originally predicted.